Rodgers to make up his mind on whether or not he will play this season. Can they take the next step after a busy offseason if he comes back? I think and when he comes back, but we'll see. And a former coach called out the Eagles for their regression on offense last season. We'll discuss if play calling was to blame and if it'll carry over to this season. A lot to come on that. Plus, draft analyst Matt Miller joins the show to talk about his top 100 picks from last week's draft, including why the Cowboys had his favorite pick of the weekend. So glad you're with us, and guess who else is here? They're all right there. Lewis Riddick, Booger McFarland, Chase Daniel joining us today. Let's get right to it, you guys. We're going to begin with news around Broncos quarterback Bo Nix, who had another surgery in Alabama. They're still working on his ankle that took him out in the postseason, the injury happening on that play. Here's NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport on the Pat McAfee show earlier today with more context on the procedure.
I think when he had it most recently examined after the obviously fractured ankle, they thought, all right, maybe there's going to be another surgery just to make sure it's healing properly and to clean some stuff up. So that's what happened. But I would expect him to be ready for training camp or very close to training camp. So, it's, second surgery sounds bad. I don't really think this is that bad. It's kind of more like Dak had the same thing. When he was coming back from his ankle and went on to play great. I don't think this is it's a thing, but I don't think it's anything that's going to derail his season or anywhere close.
Okay, so a little bit consoling there, right, for Broncos fans. Chase, as someone who played the position in the league for a very long time, do you have any concerns about Nix missing most of the offseason program with a second ankle surgery?
There's zero concerns at all. I think that Bo Nix is one of the better quarterbacks in the AFC. He's proven to do that. I think the Broncos are the class of the AFC, really. And when you look at what they've been able to do, and you look at how Bo Nix moves around, he is a guy that scrambles quite a bit. So when you have an injury on your right ankle and then you have a cleanup procedure, that's sort of your plant leg, right? That's your leg that gets all the power. And when you look at the film last year, that was at times something that got him out of control was his footwork within the pocket, right? So he was a little bit abnormal with his footwork, and then coming off this ankle surgery, really this cleanup, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles it because he is a guy that likes to move around, but I don't have any concerns whatsoever with him. As a quarterback, though, you have a little bit of rust going into training camp. You use that OTA, that organized team activities, to sort of get that rust out. He's not going to have a chance to do that, but he's going to get all the mental reps with new offensive coordinator Davis Webb, and that's the most important part, in my opinion.
All right, if you're watching at home, you're like, Chase sounds weird. We hear it too. It's not your TV. We're going to work on the audio. But funny enough, in the commercial break before we started, I was commenting on how good he sounded, so I think I jinxed it. Chase, we're going to work on it. We'll be back to you in just a little bit. But, Lewis, the Broncos are obviously coming off a trip to the AFC Championship game. What are your expectations for this group if Nix is healthy to play this season?
Laura, I expect their offense to be maybe even more balanced and more explosive. More balanced because, look, they had Jonah Coleman, the running back out of Washington, to kind of give them a little bit more of a hammer in the backfield. And I expect Davis Webb to really kind of maybe try and balance this offense out to where they can run it a little bit more, maybe catch and pass a little bit more, and really help out guys like that. Jalen Waddle, who is a huge, huge acquisition, and now you're seeing Jonah Coleman, the running back from Washington. So I expect this offense, along with the already very good offensive line, to kind of level up as they ramp up during the season and really start to hit their stride with a new play caller, with Bo Nix having maybe missed some time here in the offseason, and as things really start to get going in the months of late October, November, December. This is a football team that's going to be strong. We know they have championship caliber defense. They added some pieces on that side of the ball, as well in the draft. So I expect them to be right there in the end, once again contending in the West and contending in the AFC overall.
Yeah, I would agree with Lewis. I think the biggest thing that as fans, we often expect teams to pick up right where they left off. You're like, okay, this team was making a playoff run. You put Bo Nix back in there, they should still be right there. But they got to continue to come back and create that defensive identity. They got to get Cooper and Bonito coming off the edge. They got to create that same pass rush. They were up at near the top, leading the league in sacks last year. So can they recreate that? That's number one. And then how does Davis Webb? Sean Payton, for the first time in a long time, has given up play calling. He gave it to Davis Webb. I think that had to do with the relationship between Davis Webb and Bo Nix. So how can that get off to a really good start? That's going to be important because if it doesn't, I think we all know that Sean Payton is going to take back over play calling at some point. I'm not concerned about the cleanup procedure in the ankle. I think we've all had all changes in the offseason. It's 5 months before we ever play a game that means anything. I think health-wise they'll be fine. The biggest thing, how does how does the mesh happen between Davis Webb, Bo Nix, and how can they take Jalen Waddle and put him in that offense? I think that's going to be the bigger issue in Denver.
Yeah, Waddle, a huge addition. He's averaged the second most yards per reception since 2022, and Broncos wideouts ranked 27th last season. They needed him, right? We're still working on Chase. We'll get him back. We got Boog and Lou. Time for some top stories. We're going to start in Houston, where Pro Bowl linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair agreed to terms on a 3-year extension. One of the league's top defenses locks up a big piece of their unit coming off a trip to the Pro Bowl. He's huge in communication with this team. Probably doesn't even get enough credit for that. We know the ferocity with which he plays. The Steelers placed a rarely used UFA tender on Aaron Rodgers yesterday, meaning that he can accept a 10% raise off last year's salary, which would pay him about $15 million this season. As another condition of the tender, though, Rodgers would only be able to sign with the Steelers once training camp begins, unless another team traded for his rights. Russell Wilson met with the Jets yesterday at their facility. Our Jets reporter Rich Cimini adding that no contract's imminent, but Wilson's being considered. The 10-time Pro Bowl bowler, is coming off one season with the Giants, where he opened as the Week 1 starter before being replaced by rookie Jackson Dart after 3 games. How about this story? Chad Brinker stepping down as the Tennessee Titans president of football operations on Tuesday. He was in charge of the entire football staff, reported directly to Titans controlling owner Amy Adams Strunk. He had been in the role since 2024. Now, that timing's interesting, coming just a few days after the draft and in the middle of an already busy offseason for the Titans. In addition to hiring head coach Robert Saleh, they made key picks in the draft, including Ohio State star wideout Carnell Tate and edge rusher Keldrick Falk. They had a really good draft. They added more versatility to the D-line as well, and John Franklin Myers and Jermaine Johnson. Lewis, busy couple months in Tennessee. What have you thought about their offseason thus far?
This is one of the teams, Laura, that I was really, really high on how targeted they were in free agency as far as bringing in players that the new coaching staff were familiar with. That is the recipe for success when you are dabbling in the unrestricted free agent market. When you have guys like Jermaine Johnson, John Franklin Myers, those are guys who Robert Saleh is familiar with. Cordell Flott, who comes over from the Giants, that's a guy who Brian Daboll is familiar with. That's how you hit on those guys. And then in the draft, you see here they get Keldrick Falk out of Auburn, who you know he is just going to ride Jeffrey Simmons' coattails and try to do everything that he does, and that'd be a real wise decision for him to make. Anthony Hill Jr. is one of the best off-ball linebackers, maybe the third best off-ball linebacker in the entire draft, who is going to really be at the command and control center. And Gus Bradley's going to love coaching him. Robert Saleh's going to love coaching him. I think there's just a lot. We didn't even put Carnell Tate up there, but I'll tell you what, Cam Ward is sitting there going, hey, look, now I got another weapon on the outside to go with Elikiah Manor. The offensive line continues to be built and needs to be developed. Defensively, a lot of new pieces brought in, but they have a lot of familiarity with the coaching staff. I think there's a lot to be optimistic about, quite honestly, in Tennessee. And the South is there. Look, the South is there to really be challenged and really to be competed for. And I think Tennessee is going to make a huge jump this year.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, what's not to like when you talk about that draft of Tate, Falk, Anthony Hill? I think the draft was good, but I think something that we may have kind of glossed over a little bit. You hire Robert Saleh, he brings in Brian Daboll. Robert Saleh is a defensive guy that's going to set the tone, and he's got a cornerstone to work with in Jeffrey Simmons. But the guy that I want to focus on is Brian Daboll. I've known Brian Daboll since he was at Alabama. He drives a hard bargain, but the one thing he's going to do, he's going to get the best out of Cam Ward. You add Carnell Tate to that, I think this Titans offense is going to take a huge leap, because every player, every team, especially when you talk about a particular side of the ball, offense or defense, is going to take on the personality of that coordinator. Well, if they take on the personality of Brian Daboll, this Titans offense is going to be tough, they're going to be physical, and they're going to be borderline cocky. And that's what the head coach wants. It's time for a new attitude in Tennessee. So everything this offseason has led up to this point right now, and I think they've knocked it out of the park so far.
Yeah, Chase, Boog's bringing up Brian Daboll. You think about just a crucial second-year opportunity here for Cam Ward, and Daboll's done this with other guys before, Josh Allen, there's plenty that come to mind. What is key when it comes to how he needs to design this offense for Cam Ward?
I think Cam Ward was over the moon when they hired Brian Daboll, because exactly what Boog was saying, he is going to completely transform this offense. They're going to play both horizontally and vertically. They're going to throw the football down the field. They're going to bring in some RPOs. Look, Daboll's offense is rooted in route-based concepts and pure progression passing. makes it easy on a quarterback. You saw what he was able to do with Josh Allen. I thought really the last 8 games of the year, Cam Ward showed to me and showed to the world that he is the franchise quarterback. And both of you guys alluded to it, though. You're able to go out there and you're able to get Carnell Tate, Wan'Dale Robinson in free agency, still got Tony Farrell. All these guys add up to a team that, you know, you're surrounding your guy with weapons. That just told me number 4 overall, Carnell Tate, no one had him mocked there. Yeah. But the Tennessee Titans, Mike Bergonzi, he's a Chiefs guy. He's an offensive guy. He knows how to build teams. You got to surround your franchise quarterback with players. That's exactly what he did.
I actually think that Tate pick was a bit of a ripple effect for the rest of the first round when he got taken that early. I mean, some had rumbled about it, but it really, to your point, was not on people's draft boards that way. Some people thought he'd go to the Commanders. Anyway, Carnell Tate, 5 40-yard touchdowns, ESPN.com. He evaluated all the players taken and the value that teams got out of them based on where they were picked. So you can see the top 10 picks there on the board. Look at that. We're flying up to it, okay? Fernando Mendoza comes in at 9th overall. Let's welcome in Matt here, get a little more context on all of this. Take us through your top 5 picks, Matt. Let's start with number 5.
Yeah, Laura, let's start with the New York Jets. They get one of my favorite players in the entire draft in Omar Cooper Jr., who's actually my number 3 receiver on the board this year. So to steal him at pick number 30 is an absolute great value for them. No, we don't know who the quarterback of the future might be in New York. I think we'll figure that out in 2027. But whomever it is will have a great group of pass catchers to get Cooper Jr. His ability in the middle of the field, the route running ability, but also it's the yards after catch. We all know about this play, the one against Penn State, the fantastic catch. This is what he does routinely, making those tough grabs and not being afraid of contact in the middle of the field. Now, speaking of not being afraid of contact, Mekhi Lemon going to the Philadelphia Eagles is a perfect fit culture-wise, scheme fit-wise, and the fan base is going to absolutely love what he does in the middle of the field. He's tough. He's fearless. You turn on the Iowa game, he's breaking tackles. He's getting hit by 2 safeties at a time, and he's still making plays. He will be that middle-of-the-field weapon that Jalen Hurts needs, especially if A.J. Brown is not with the team after June 1st when his contract becomes tradable. So Lemon was my number 1 receiver in the class. The Eagles stole him at pick 20. Now, a big trade in this draft was the Chiefs coming up from number 9 to 6 to get the lone round 1 corner in this class in Mansour Delane. Funny enough, my comp for him before the draft was Trent McDuffie. Now, he'll replace him on the outside of the Kansas City defense. And like McDuffie, he could be an all-pro as a slot corner or someone that can live and survive on the outside. He has that toughness. He has that speed to his game that showed up at Virginia Tech and this past year at LSU. Now, the other corner that could have been drafted in the first round but wasn't, Jermod McCoy. My number 10 overall player in the draft fell to 101 because of concerns about a knee injury that he suffered in January 2025 and the rehab process from that. If he can get on the field healthy, the Raiders have maybe the steal of the entire draft in the 4th round back on the field. And my favorite pick of the draft, I know the Dallas Cowboys don't need any publicity, but they absolutely crushed it in this draft. Caleb Downs at number 11. You trade up 1 spot to secure an elite safety prospect who won back-to-back national championships. He was a 3-time All-American. He hit the field immediately and was fantastic for Nick Saban's defense at Alabama before going to Ohio State. He's pro-ready, he's smart, he's a winner, and he'll be a culture-setting presence in that Dallas Cowboys secondary room. It's a defense that needed a lot of help, and Dallas addressed it early and often.
Yeah, my favorite thing with Caleb Downs is right after he was drafted, I asked him on the stage, what did Jerry just say? Because he had told me he was on the phone with Jerry, and he's like, I don't know. I couldn't hear him, but I knew it was Jerry. So he's great. He's going to be such a success in Dallas. We appreciate you, Matt. Let's focus in a little bit more on the Cowboys, where they were clearly zeroed in on defense. 5 of their first 6 picks were on that side of the ball, their most since 2021. Dallas also drafted multiple first-round defenders for the first time since 2005. And, oh... Wait, I really wish the camera was on me because I fell over. Oh, no. Wow. All right, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Are you okay?
Nobody's worried, but this chair is rolling around, and I fell down. Like, I was hustling around the studio, and anyway.
Blame it on the chair.
Does anybody have footage of this? Because hopefully there was a camera rolling. If there is one, we'll bring it back. Boog, because I love a good blooper. Boog, how do you think the Cowboys did with their defense-focused approach in the draft?
Well, number one, I think it was a side of the ball that needed a lot of attention. Spending, looking at how much money they have on the offensive side of the ball. We've already talked about Caleb Downs. I want to focus on Malachi Lawrence. He's a guy that has all the measurables. He's got juice coming off the edge. And when you talk about a Cowboy defense that's lost Micah Parsons, they need some juice coming off the edge. He's going to provide that. You go down in the 4th round, Jayshon Barnum, LT Overton, 2 guys that can rush the passer. I think they did exactly what they needed to do. So you got to give Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, and Will McClay, the de facto GM, a lot of credit because they have addressed needs and they got players that can get after the quarterback in the front 7. I think that's going to be the key for this defense. Can they put enough pressure on the quarterback while that back end of the defense continues to come along?
All I wanted them to do, Boog, was draft defense, and that's exactly what they did because that's the help they needed. If you look at Dak Prescott's quarterback play, really the entire year, top 2 or 3 quarterback, in my opinion. This offense can compete for a Super Bowl. This defense was really, really bad. So what do? You go out, you draft amazing players, specifically Caleb Downs. It's an A-plus draft for me for the Cowboys, just for getting Caleb Downs himself. He's a guy, right? We talk about positional value. He plays safety, but he can play 3 types of safeties. He can play down in the box, hit you in the run. He can play back in center field and play free safety. He can also play in the slot. He's got really, really good ball skills. So you're really getting 3 positions in one. He can play them all. You're getting a guy that can move all around, and his pre-snap diagnosis is exceptional. And I'm a huge fan, Boog, of Malachi Lawrence. Like, I don't understand the hesitation with him. He's going to take a little bit of time. He's raw, but he's got a lot of speed coming off the edge, Lou. And it's just one of those things where you need players that can play right away on this Dallas Cowboys defense, and they got starters in day 1 and day 2.
Yeah, Chase, I don't know if there's too much hesitation about Malachi. I mean, the scouting community loved him, and because he's got ridiculous measurables, and he had production. He has great hand use, bend, competitive qualities. He's got all that. The dude who really could kind of make this draft, and I know we're going to talk about Caleb Downs a lot, and rightfully so. But the guy who you really need to talk about a little bit with this defense is Jayshon Barham, and the fact that he's not really going to be, I don't think, used as an edge rusher per se. He's going to line up inside, maybe with the Marvion Overshone. And Jayshon Barham is a problem. This dude is fast, explosive, strong at the point of attack, has a motor that runs all day long, and he can rush the passer. Meaning, if it's in sub and you want to literally make him stand up outside and rush it at 2-point, he can whip a lot of offensive tackles. He's probably one of the, I don't want to say under the radar. I don't know if I like the word under the radar anymore because scouts really knew just how versatile this kid is. But I think for the general viewing public, they're going to start watching Cowboys preseason games, and they're going to go, who the hell is Jayshon Barham, and why is he making every play? So, yeah, Christian Parker, the new defensive coordinator, has a lot of cool toys to work with, no doubt.
No, I think you're absolutely right with Barham. I think you do start him on the inside. He didn't move to the edge position until week 3 last year for Michigan, and that's where we saw some of the production really ramp up. That's when we started talking about him, at least from the media perspective. But to your point, scouts were absolutely aware of him. But to round out this defense, they've addressed edge heavy. I mean, we saw Malachi Lawrence go early. LT Overton goes late. They bring in guys, Rashawn Gary via trade this past offseason. So I think they're good at edge. I would love to see Barham unleashed on the inside where, yeah, in nickel situations, you can get him blitzing. You can get him coming off the edge. But I think Barham and Overton are the two guys to watch. Devin Moore, the corner from Florida, as well, was a top 100 player. I think they got great value for him. So it's a team that needed defense, and they deserve a lot of credit for not overthinking this, getting cute, and drafting running backs and wide receivers when what they really needed was trench players in the front 7 on defense.
Yeah, it wasn't cute. It was just defense. I love it. Including 5 this year, the Cowboys have drafted 10 more defenders than any other team under Jerry's ownership. We got more coming your way next on NFL. That's what it looks like on ESPN.com. These are the top 100 draft picks in the NFL this year. They're based on the value of where teams were able to select the players. So 4 quarterbacks made the list. Matt, take us through where you ranked them. Let's start with Fernando Mendoza at 9.
Yeah, Fernando Mendoza, a fantastic pick. I think we all knew this one was going to happen, right? The #1 pick overall throughout the process. But I love the fit with the Raiders. I really do. I think what Clint Kubiak's going to do offensively fits what Mendoza does so well. There was a lot of RPO in college. They're going to use a lot of pre-snap motion in Las Vegas. So he's going to fit well into this offense. They need to continue to develop the targets on the outside of the formation for him. That's going to be a huge part of the process. But they have an offensive line. They have a run game. Now they have a franchise quarterback. Ty Simpson, I think we've all debated this one so many times over the past few weeks. It was a surprise at number 13 overall, but the fit is fantastic for Ty. He gets to sit and learn behind Matthew Stafford. The biggest knock on him was just 15 starts at Alabama despite being a 4-year player. He needs time to learn the game. He needs time to acclimate. The hope is he doesn't see the field for 2 years as the Rams make some more Super Bowl runs. Drew Allar to the Pittsburgh Steelers. What a great moment for him to get drafted, to stay in the state of Pennsylvania. Another guy who hopefully gets to sit and learn and get healthy. Allar never really got to hit that moment in his career at Penn State where you felt like he was fully developed. If Aaron Rodgers is back, or with Mason Rudolph there as an established veteran backup, Allar should have the opportunity to sit, to get healthy after a season-ending injury, and to learn and be developed, something that didn't happen for him at State College. Garrett Nussmeier, this was maybe the shock of the draft, was how long he waited to hear his name called. But he goes to an ideal situation. Another player coming off a season-ending injury. There was injury concerns at the NFL Scouting Combine once the medicals came out. Nussmeier gets an opportunity to sit, get healthy. We know Mahomes is coming back from the torn ACL. They have Justin Fields there as a stopgap just in case. Nussmeier might be a candidate for the practice squad early, but he is in a spot where the Chiefs can finally develop that long-term backup that they really have not ever had under Mahomes.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks to Matt for great work out of you. Chase, you were higher on Nussmeier than some of the other evaluators. What do you like so much about him?
Well, yeah, Laura, he was quarterback 3 in my opinion. I thought he was a 3rd, maybe early 4th round pick. The way he's able to go out there and throw the football, I enjoyed watching him on film. I watched almost every single one of his tape from 2024 and 2025. Now you go back to 2024 and there's some throws and there's some games that scream 1st round talent. Obviously the injury, right? So I would agree with Matt. Like, it was a shock to me when I'm like, hey, it's almost better, right, when you're in the 6th and 7th round. Hey, let's go undrafted. Let's pick where we're going. Well, the Chiefs said not so fast. Let's go up. Let's get Garrett Nussmeier. And it's an ideal landing spot for him with Andy Reid, right? You're going to get a ton of reps in the offseason and organized team activities along with training camp because we don't know when Mahomes is going to be back. But when you go out there and you learn from Andy Reid and you learn from Patrick Mahomes and you get a chance to sit, who knows? Like, my comp for him was Drew Lock. And Drew Lock's had some success in this league. He's probably not going to start over Patrick Mahomes, but it's a really good starting point for him.
Yeah, let's continue on the Chiefs a little bit more and talking about their draft. Nussmeier was the final pick for them, but they made 6 others before that, including their first 4 on defense. Only the 3rd time an Andy Reid team has done that. Kansas City traded up to get Mansour Delane, marking the first time they traded up to make a top 10 pick since Patrick Mahomes in 2017. Lewis, the Chiefs hoping to be back to contending for Super Bowls this season. What did you take away from their draft performance?
They killed it, Laura. They absolutely killed it. All 7 of their draft picks are going to make their football team. All 7 of them, minus Garrett Nussmeier, are probably going to play. And they're going to play a lot. The defenders at the top of the draft between, Peter Woods, R. Mason, Thomas, to go along with Mansour, I mean, those guys are going to be absolute studs for this football team. Janie Kennedy, who they drafted out of Oregon, is going to be a guy who contends to play right away in the nickel position. And here you're getting a look at Mansour Delane, who their coaching staff on the defensive side of the football had rated very, 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 very high. And he was a must-have, and that's why Brett went up to get him. And then when you look at the bottom of their draft, look, I'll tell you this. Cyrus Allen, the wide receiver out of Cincinnati, keep an eye out for him, and keep an eye out for an undrafted free agent who they got out of Cincinnati named Jeff Caldwell, who kind of looks like a baby Calvin Johnson. I'm telling you, this football team, everybody who they drafted is going to be on this football team. And then they got some guys who you don't even really know about right now. You'll hear about them soon.
And, that's the cool thing, man. Like, when you get a team that's a veteran-laden team that has won a bunch of playoff games like the Kansas City Chiefs, and you take some youth and you inject that youth, especially on defense. When we talk about Mansour Delane, everybody knows about him. Best cornerback in the draft. Peter Woods, a guy people fell off of a little bit. He was supposed to be a top 10 pick. He came into the season, didn't play quite as well. Here's the one thing I can tell you. I trained him in the offseason. Outstanding quickness. I think he's a bigger version of Grady Jarrett. You add in R. Mason Thomas, they got some youth that they're going to inject some excitement in this defense. And I think they're going to get guys like Chris Jones ready to go again. So it's a nice blend of guys that have to come in there and play. You put that with Steve Spagnuolo, add that to Chris Jones. I think this is going to be a really, really big big-time offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, you guys covering Oklahoma throughout the college football playoff this past year. Our Mason Thomas, one of my favorite players to watch on the sideline. The leadership, the intensity, the enthusiasm. That's going to translate to the NFL level. I love it. All right, let's talk about the Steelers a little bit more. He was another quarterback on Matt's list, Drew Allar. They drafted him in the 3rd round. And then yesterday, they placed the rarely used UFA tender on Aaron Rodgers, meaning that he can accept a 10% raise off last year's salary, which would pay him about $15 million this season. As another condition of the tender, Rodgers would only be able to sign with the Steelers once training camp happens. So we'll see what happens there. And they'll retain his rights, which is another big deal. All right, so not a lot of experience in Pittsburgh's quarterback room with Rodgers' status in limbo. There are 3 rostered quarterbacks, Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Drew Allar. They all have a combined 19 NFL starts. So, Boog, when you think about the expectations for this team, if Rodgers decides to come back and play, let's live in that world first. Where are we with what the Steelers will look like based off of other additions they've made?
None. Again, none. Because I don't have any expectations for a quarterback that doesn't want to get hit anymore. Like, we've discussed this ad nauseum and the excitement and Aaron Rodgers. And number one, why we continue to drag this on. He told us that we were going to know something within a month. Well, guess what? It's almost May again. We're headed toward June in the same situation. Aaron Rodgers is a 40-plus-year-old quarterback that doesn't want to get hit. If he comes back, he will have his moments, sure enough. But at the end of the day, he's not getting any younger. And I think they're going to be an 8-9, 9-8 football team because that's what the quarterback is. He's going to be inconsistent. He's not what he used to be. And I've said it all offseason. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be better off by moving on and starting this process over. They want to hang on, and they want to hang on to a guy that clearly, for whatever reason, doesn't want to commit to playing at the very minimum. He doesn't want to commit to the offseason. They want to continue to wait on him. They're going to get what they deserve, which is an 8-9, 9-8 type roster. And maybe, just maybe next year, they'll go and draft a quarterback that they can move on with. If I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, Lewis, I'm tired of this dancing pony show. Like, we keep doing this over and over and over again. At some point, they're going to learn, but it looks like this year they won't.
Yeah, look, I'm sure they're tired of doing it too. The problem with them is they're always just good enough to be outside of the window to where they could really go ahead and draft a franchise caliber quarterback. And when you bring a guy in like Aaron, who can keep you right around 500, although there is no true 500 now at 17 games, that's part of the problem. So they're stuck in football purgatory until they decide, hey, look, either we're going to play a guy like Drew Allar for an entire season, and either he is going to swim and surprise us all and develop into that kind of franchise quarterback that we want, or he's going to be bad. We're going to actually be a bad football team record-wise, not that they're trying to be, and then they'll be in that window to where maybe then they have a chance to draft the franchise quarterback and or have some maneuverability up the draft board to get in position to draft one. Now, we know that the 27 draft is going to be presumably much heavier as far as quarterback prospects who could potentially be franchise quarterbacks. Maybe that's where this whole drawn out saga of what is Pittsburgh going to do at quarterback comes to an end. But hey, they've always been on the cusp of being a fringe playoff team, which always leaves you on the cusp of being a fringe potential buyer or selector of a franchise quarterback. And it stinks being there. It does. It stinks for us because we keep trying to figure out how the hell they're going to address the quarterback position, but you can't. You can't unless they swing some gigantic trade, give up a whole draft's worth of full draft's worth of selections and make some kind of outlandish type of acquisition. And the Rooneys are not going to do that. That's not what Pittsburgh does. So here we are, right? Here we are.
Yeah, we just spent a bunch of time with all the Yinzers out there in Pittsburgh. They're getting tired of this. They want to see some more success happen in this group. All right, let's look at these numbers again because we kind of missed this before. So as you can see, the 3 rostered quarterbacks, Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Drew Allar, they have a combined 19 NFL starts. Chase, if they don't have Rodgers, let's live in that world where he says, I'm not playing for another team, but I'm just done. What do you think of Allar?
Well, let's hope they have Rodgers. I think they'll have Rodgers because Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, or Drew Allar, I don't know if is the answer. And like Lou was saying, you're in QB purgatory where you're drafting. You can't really go up and get your guy. But with Drew Allar specifically, he's probably one of the most frustrating watches that I've seen and that I've broken down the last 2 or 3 years I've been doing this, because there's going to be a game where he wows you and you're like, dude, this guy is a first round pick, no doubt about it. Huge, strong arm, statue in the pocket. And then you're going to go and look at the very next game and maybe sometimes the very next play in the game. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? And so the ceiling is there. And this is a Mike McCarthy draft pick, right? Like Will Howard and the other guys there, they're not Mike McCarthy guys. So Drew Allar is going to have a chance to win the backup job. And he's going to have a chance to, well, if Rodgers comes back, not play right away and develop. And I like him under Mike McCarthy's scheme because it's one of those things where Mike McCarthy really, really wants your quarterback's feet to be in position at all times. Drew Allar's got really good feet, right? Aaron Rodgers got really good feet. That's one of the things that he does. So with development, I think he can be somewhat of a really interesting prospect.
Yeah, really going to be fun to watch how they end up using Allar no matter what it is. I agree. They're going to have Rodgers, but it's still fun to talk about what it could look like. Coming up next, the Eagles took a step back last season, and former Eagles coach says the play calling is to blame. You don't want to miss this. Someone here thinks there might be some truth to that. We'll find out more right after the break. We'll be right back.